Sana.
I hope you're well.
Well, you always ask me this question, and I always respond in kind. I am physically well, but emotionally and
so it's the same situation. Hello, Doc.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
As long as we continue to have this looting consortium in charge of the affairs of Kwame Nkrumah's Ghana, we clearly are off balance until we recalibrate and resituate the country to what we know. We can only do that with the NDC in power, led by our flag bearer, the former president, John Dramani Mahama. Look, even before we get to the EC, and I believe the miserable attempt to justify an untenable, unlawful, and unreasonable position, it is crystal clear to every single Ghanaian. Even from people in the MPP, some of them seeking to become the flag bearer of that party, that nothing has seen any progress since January 7th, 2017 in this country. You sector by sector, you take issue by issue, you take challenge by challenge. We have not seen progress. We have actually seen regression. And that is how terrible the situation is.
Well, let's come to the matter of the Electoral Commission. And, of course, one of the contests is also the economic context we find ourselves in. The fact that people are struggling to come by a meal a day. You have raised concerns with what is being done by the Electoral Commission. First of all, put your concerns into context for me. What are your main challenges with what the EC is doing with the limited voter registration currently?
Very well, Sana. This conversation is broad, but I will try to summarize my concerns as you indicated. But in doing so, it is important that we also situate it in the right context. We know Article 42 of the 1992 Constitution, the right to vote is a fundamental right. And the purpose of the Constitution made that conscious decision to also make this clause an entrenched clause in our Constitution. And as we have said time without number, and I think a lot of us perhaps overlook the full content of the right to vote. Because the right to vote is one of the primary reasons why the Electoral Commission itself was created and was given life by the same Constitution. So if you look at Article 42 onwards, the right to vote, you notice that the citizen's right to vote is captured ahead of the role and responsibilities and expectations of what an Electoral Commission ought to be and ought to be doing. And the right to vote, as we know, says that every Ghanaian, just to paraphrase, every Ghanaian 18 and above of sound mind has the right. And in fact, it goes on to add, and I want Ghanaians to pay attention to this aspect of it. It goes on to add, in addition to right, has the right, an entitlement underscored, to be registered to participate in national elections and referenda. This is what it says. You know, you don't go down and it talks about the Electoral Commission the objects of the commission, in this case, why it exists, why it is set up. And in fact, also talks about the fact that the commission ought to be putting in place plans, programs, and activities to expand that right to vote. What that means is that must always bring on board people who qualify to vote by plans and programs and activities. So when you combine these two and everything else that we know, even the CI of the current CI, I believe it's CI 191, and you juxtapose that with what is going on, and you listen to the very flimsy, very emaciated, the very malnourished attempt by Jean Mensah to justify what she is doing, which to many of us is actually working against the mandate, the very purpose for which the institution she's leading is set up, then you begin to wonder what could be influences, if not for deliberately trying to suppress voters and prevent citizens from exercising their right and benefiting from their entitlement. What else could justify a very spirited and indeed lonely, unreasonable effort to say that citizens who have the right and are entitled, and look, Ghanaians should look up the meaning of entitlement. An entitlement is a right. It is a given. An entitlement, in this case, is akin to having served your nation as a public servant, a public or civil servant, and then you retire, and then you are expected to have your entitlement, your benefit. It is guaranteed. And so when an electoral commissioner who is mandated by the Constitution, funded by the people, to ensure that they don't benefit from the right, which of course will come to obligations, but also their entitlement, then puts in place a program, an activity that is posing a physical barrier, a financial barrier, an emotional barrier to the citizens' right and benefit as guaranteed by the Constitution, we ought to call that person, person into question. And I'll give a specific example of my constituency, and I know it's the same in other parts of the country. Our district capital is Builsa, and I have communities as distant as 60 kilometers, 50 kilometers, 35 kilometers, and what have you. In this current economic dispensation, where people are struggling to get 3 square meals a day, where inflation is so high and the cost of living is so depleting, you expect my constituents, some of whom have never had a disposable income in a whole calendar year of more than 100 Ghana cedis, to be able to pay 32 Ghana cedis from a community of mine like Bachongsa to Builsa to go and register. So that is an example of the financial burden. So the citizens who are qualified to register are now being challenged because Jean Mensah has shown to put an impediment of cost in their way, where they now have to make the decision between having to find food to eat and going to register. And going to register, they must pay the transportation, they have to feed themselves, And they must also deal with having to go with 2 guarantors. Then you get there from Bachongsa, as we have been able to mobilize some of them to even go at our cost, which shouldn't even be the case. And then the line is either too long, or the system is down, or the machines are not functioning to the optimum, or they are few. And some of these people, having come from 35 kilometers, would either have to be transported back to Bachongsa and brought again another day, or you would have to provide additional resources for them to have accommodation. Why should that be the case? Because somebody has decided that she is going to defy the constitutional rights and benefits of citizens and to run a registration process the way and manner she deems fit. So now, as we speak, this is the roads are atrocious. At the same time, this is also farming season. So, besides the roads and the cost, the people also have to do the opportunity cost of having to go all the way to Fumbisi and leave their farms or stay and work on their farms. Whereas if this was devolved to what we all have been advocated for, and I must be quick to add that every single stakeholder in this country is advocating for a devolution of the current arrangement to the electoral, to the level of the electoral areas to make it easier. Because if that were to be done, Bachongsa and its inhabitants who qualify would have come to Doninga. Nyambisa would have come to Doninga. Yipala would have come to Doninga. Places like Kalasa would go to Kanjara. Nyandema would go to Kanjara. And it is much closer, much more convenient, and would make much more sense. Then she says what? One of the reasons why they are doing this is to protect the sanctity of the register and to prevent foreigners and minors from registering. Shana, this is the most idiotic argument I have ever heard. In fact...
Idiotic?
Oh, yes. Because it doesn't make sense. I don't know how else to call it. It is idiotic. Because just listen to this very illogical argument. You have chosen to centralize the process in a place where you are going to have representatives, whether from political parties or other observer groups, who do not have the benefit of knowing those who are going to come and register, because they are coming from distant communities. And so the same argument that is being used to justify the centralization of the process is the argument that should justify the devolution of the process. It is much easier to identify impersonators, people who do not meet the qualification to register. If this is happening at the macro level, than centralizing it. So when you have that NDC or NPP representative in Fumbisi, how is that representative to know that somebody who claims to be from Bachongsa, who claims to be from Nyambisa, who claims to be from any part of Builsa South, is even from Builsa South in the first place? By what you are doing, are you not actually enhancing the ability and capacity of those who want to cheat the system, whether foreigners or minors, to exploit a situation where those who are going to be seated there don't have the capacity or ability to determine their suitability or not, and thereby challenging them?
So your suggestion is that what she is doing endangers the register more than it would have if it was in the electoral areas?
Exactly my point. Because with the electoral area, which is much closer to the polling station in terms of the hierarchy, The communities will be present. People know each other. Observers will be there. They will see, they will notice. They will raise the alarm. But what she is doing now, it is actually going to make it possible for both minors and foreigners to get on the electoral roll. And yet she claims that what she is doing, violating the rights of citizens, putting impediments in the way of citizens, making it difficult for citizens to access their constitutionally guaranteed benefit and right, is what is going to address, quote unquote, challenges to the integrity of the register. It doesn't make sense. That is why I say it's idiotic. And look, then she goes on to make the case that, the challenges only emerged in the first 2 days, and they are being corrected, and that, they are replacing machines, and they have not sent faulty machines to the strongholds of NDC. Who says so? Look, she shouldn't take us for idiots. The system is not functioning the way it ought to be functioning. Just yesterday, in my constituency, after we had managed to mobilize people in this very rainy, wet season, convince them and make the case as to why they should sacrifice a day, we carried them in tricycles to Fumisi. And we had to transport them back because the machines there were not functioning properly, and because the machines were few, and those who were to man the machines were few. How easy do you think it is going to be for us to continue taking them back and convincing them to spend another day leaving their farms unattended to go and register? But you see, in all of this, I must be honest with you, I think that Jean Mensah has become arrogant and lawless because our court system invariably is aiding her on. And I say so for good reason. How is it that a process that is supposed to benefit citizens, which is their right and their entitlement, is being undertaken in a way that is clearly generating the opposite effect? And citizens decide that they are going to seek redress in the court of law. And for some very strange reason, the only avenue where citizens have the right to go and demand redress and to demand their entitlement and to demand what is due them, then makes the decision not to grant the citizens what they wanted when they wanted it, for an injunction to be placed on the process, and the excuse that was given was that the Chief Justice was not in town. And after our flag bearer, John Dramani Mahama, raised this issue, then the plaintiffs are given a date that is post the activity. Senna, is it not obvious that this singular act alone emboldens the lawlessness and misconduct and unreasonable posture of Jean Mensah? So clearly, the courts that are supposed to give us the right as citizens to demand accountability and to accept our rights and benefits are invariably aiding Jean Mensah to abuse our rights and to deny us our benefits as granted by the Constitution. Because what is the point in giving a date post the activity for which the citizens have gone to court to indicate that the way and manner in which this is being done is infringing on their rights. And you see, we can even go back into recent history. You remember during the 2020 electoral petition, when we were all sure about how it was going, the fact that she was going to sit in the dock and testify to her stewardship. When it came up, we were told that she can choose not to testify in the dock. And she got away with that. So the point I'm trying to make is this. Those Ghanaians who have a voice and are deciding to sit on the fence, to think that what is going on is just about those of us in the NDC and all civil society organizations should think again. Because when you have situations where the electoral commission is seen to be acting in ways that are inimical to the well-being of citizens, denying them their right, trying to suppress votes, trying to disenfranchise citizens, and the court where citizens are supposed to go and seek redress is, for lack of a better word, reluctant to grant citizens the opportunity to hold the electoral commission accountable. Senna, it doesn't bode well for the future of our democracy. Because when citizens begin to feel that public and state institutions have been compromised and are being influenced to work against their interests, and they lose more faith in established state and public institutions, that is the beginning of the end of a democracy. And it is very sad and unfortunate that the two principal institutions, in my opinion, the electoral commission and the court system, that should be seen to be championing and defending the citizens' rights as far as elections are concerned, are acting in ways that are making people wonder whether there is no collusion or connivance to do something that is going to benefit a particular political party against the interests of the generality of the people. I mean, just look at the spectrum of groups, individuals, entities who have all made the case that we are making. That look, devolve the process. Let's get it to the doorstep of the people. That is why the Constitution says that it is a right and an entitlement. Entitlement means that I shouldn't have to suffer. I shouldn't have to bear a cost. I shouldn't have to pick between registering and being on my farm. I am entitled to it. You must bring it to me. Why is that too difficult for Jean Mensah to understand?
She also talks about the numbers they've seen so far, and she seems impressed with the numbers, that even in the difficulties you're talking about, people are still ready to come out to register.
But you see, that is another illogical reasoning. So think about it. If in spite of all of these challenges, you are getting this number, what that tells you is that if we were to devolve it, as we are advocating for, even more people will register. Shouldn't that be your goal? It's Jean Mensah's mandate, is the mandate of the Electoral Commission not to expand the voters' register. So why would you want to engage in a process that is not going to expand the opportunity for first-time voters to register to vote? So you see, her argument again defeats what she is doing. In spite of all these challenges, people are registering. You see. So now imagine if you take away all of these obstacles. The obstacle of finance, the obstacle of distance, the obstacle of inconvenience, and the obstacle of weather vagrancies the obstacle of immotorable roads. Imagine how many more people will register. Even the obstacle of security. Because as some of these young lads are traveling, they are traveling distances to places that some of them perhaps have never even visited. So their security is also an issue. And then she says, given the numbers, the estimates of about 1.3 million, in her estimation, with the end process, they able to register about 700,000. Really? Is that her job? Is that her job to determine how many Ghanaians who qualify to register should register or not register? Your responsibility is to make the process easy, accessible, humane, and closer to the potential voters. It is not your job to determine whether all the 1.3 million or 700,000 should register and not register. That is not part of Jean Mensah and the EC's mandate.
Doc.
The registration that is being undertaken now is targeted. Have come of age and those who may like to vote in the district assembly elections, and that there will be a mop-up, as you indicated earlier, and there will be a much more wholesale registration process towards the 2024 election. And I said, my goodness, how can an electoral commissioner, how can you even enunciate this from your buccal cavity? How can this come from your mouth? Are you telling us, therefore, that the district assembly elections are of no importance? They are of no national consequence? These are not national elections? That our local governance system is to be treated with disdain? That as many Ghanaians who qualify should not register to participate in the upcoming district assembly elections? Is that what Jean Mensah is telling us? So you see, she really has no basis. She has no justification for doing what she is doing. And it is rather unfortunate that citizens are not getting their opportunity. They are not getting their right to seek redress in a timely fashion.
Okay.
Because these arguments that she made yesterday clearly cannot stand. And we keep hearing the challenges day in and day. Look at the urban areas. Look at what is happening. Look at the fights. Look at the violence. Why must Ghanaians be dehumanized simply because they are trying to access their right and to enjoy a benefit granted them by the Constitution?
Doc, thank you very much for speaking to us, Doc.
It's a pleasure, Senator.
Dr. Clement APAAK is Member of Parliament for Builsa South, speaking to us. And that is what the chairperson of the Electoral Commission has in terms of response for us. We played significant portions of what she said, the important points she makes in response to the issues that have been raised. Are you impressed? Well, let me remind you once again that the weather and traffic segment are proudly sponsored by Flora Tissues. Weather and traffic segment is sponsored by Flora Tissues. And don't forget, your calls or comments are brought to you by Awake Purified Drinking Water and Betika. We have been joined on the line by Mr. Paul Abrampa Mensah. Thank you very much for your time, and good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, my brother.
I hope you're well, sir.
I'm okay, and you?
I'm also well. Mr. Paul Abrampa Mensah is Senior Programs Officer for CDD Ghana and has been working with Codeo for a while now.